Hi, in this video, we're going to continue building out our feature where we give the ability for users to add purchases to an invoice. And before I ever try to build that into the app itself, the very first thing I do is actually test things out in the console, because if I can make it work in the console, then it's going to be a lot easier and a lot faster to add it to the application itself. And so the first thing that I need to do is come up to the app and then models, because our invoice actually needs to have a call and a connection to our purchase table. And so what I put in is has_many and then purchases. And all that does is it connects the tables up so it knows that the invoice has the ability to have many purchases. We have to say has many, and make sure you do purchases, even though the table is called purchase. Because of the way Rails works with plurals, you need to have an S there so you know that it can have multiple purchases associated with it. And that's all we need to do from a code perspective. And now I'll come down to the console and type in Rails C. You can do this in sandbox mode, but because I'm actually going to be creating some real products, I wanted to do the regular console, because then I want to be able to query them later and iterate through them, that kind of thing. So just to get an idea of what our database looks like right now, I'm going to do a test query, and I'm going to store it in a variable, and I'll actually store it in variable I and say invoice.last. So this last invoice has a company of ABC Plumbing, and it is invoice ID 11. And if you remember back to our console training, you can access any one of these points just by typing in the variable that you gave it, a dot, and then any of the parameters. So if I want to see the date it was created, I can just do i.date, and it prints that out. Just a really nice way to use the console. So now we know that we have our query for our last invoice, and so now we're going to start adding a few purchases for it, and we can do it right in the console. And the way you do it is you say purchase.create, and then you put in the parameters. So we have a name parameter, and I'm going to say laptop, comma, a category, and for this category I'm going to say hardware, then a quantity, I'll say 2. One thing, if you do notice, the hardware and laptop, because those are strings, I need to put those in between quotes. I could do single quotes or double quotes, but for quantity, because it's expecting an integer, it's fine to just, in fact I have to just do it just like this. I can't put it in strings, it's expecting a real number. So that's quantity. Now the last part, it's the only part that may be considered a little bit tricky, is our reference call, because we want this purchase to be associated with this invoice. To do that, I do invoice, but instead of giving a number, giving anything like that, I'm going to pass that variable I. So it's going to reference the last invoice. I'm going to end the parentheses, hit return, and there you go. It created it. And if I want to see how it works, I can just do now purchase last, or even purchase all. And you can see there is our item. We have a laptop of a quantity 2, and if you can see, it also references that invoice ID of 11. And so to show you that you can also add multiple items, I'm going to just create another one right here. So our first one was laptop, but now let's do desktop, and we'll have another category for hardware that'll be the same, a quantity of 1, and the invoice is still going to be I. So hit return, and that worked. Now if I do purchase.all, you can see both of those items are there. Now a really neat thing is, and this is really one of the most important things using the console for this type of build, I can now test to make sure my connections and my queries work from the invoice itself. So I want to be able to call the invoice and then automatically be able to call all of the purchases associated with that invoice. So to call the invoice, remember I just hit I, and that brings that in there. But now I actually want to be able to get the purchases. And to do that, all I have to do is I.purchases.all, hit return, and there you go. So I didn't even need to call purchase by itself or any of the purchase IDs because of the relational nature of the database, and because we've already set up and hooked up all of those connections. That is all we needed to do. So now when we actually build this out, and that's going to be the next episode, we're going to be able to iterate through these, and for every one of these items we're going to be able to show it up on the screen. So this is a way I really like to do it. I know a lot of other developers, especially Ruby developers, use the console a lot before they even touch the real life application, and that's the way I operate as well. So if you're really wanting to become a serious Ruby on Rails developer, it's a practice you definitely want to practice a lot. So please let me know if you have any questions at all, and I'll see you in the next video.